So thanks for having me along. It's fantastic that different groups can come together in Australia because we're working towards the same thing, and that is keeping Australia a wild place. All right, so when people look at the Sea Shepherd logo, they think, oh gosh, that's a bit scary and it's a bit ominous, and a lot of people don't like it. In fact, I thought it was a bit scary when I first joined the organisation, but what we do is pretty scary, and it isn't about fluffy animals and lovely seals and beautiful whales. It's actually about stopping a brutal slaughter of people breaking the law and killing animals. So that's why it is a pretty ominous logo. But it is also the pirates logo as well. So someone said to Paul Watson that he thinks that we are the good pirates. So that's where the logos come from. Right, so I always start with this. Well, I normally start with this when I talk to children in schools, but I think it's good for everyone to start off with this. This is obviously the earth, and this is our home, and this is our only home. And what a lot of people don't realise is most of this earth is actually ocean, and it is the lungs of the earth. And if we don't save the oceans, then we're not going to have much green. So it's really important that we really put energies towards preserving the life in the oceans, which until about 10 years ago, people didn't really think about the ocean so much. We always thought it was an inexhaustible resource with plenty of fish, but now we're realising that it is something that is in serious, serious problems, and they think that world fisheries in 30 years' time are pretty much all would have been collapsed. So it's about really coming together and finding out the issues and trying to solve them. So conservation laws are in place in the ocean, but no one is enforcing them. And that's why we wish that we had the United Nations down there. We wish we had the Australian government. We wish we had our Coast Guard down there, but we don't have anyone down in Antarctica enforcing the laws down in Antarctica and saving the whales. So that's where Sea Shepherd comes in. And here we have got a little picture of we are the police of the seas. We do this by speaking the language that they understand, and that is profit and loss, because they're not listening to the Antarctic Treaty of 1959. They're not listening to CITES, which is a Convention for International Trade of Endangered Flora and Fauna, because they're going also after the endangered fin whale, and they're going against the law of the sea. So Paul Watson, you might have seen him. He's the founder. He was actually one of the founders of Greenpeace, but then in 1977 broke away and established Sea Shepherd because he really wanted to get and actually physically stop people from breaking the law. So he's a wonderful man. So just like your organisation, it's based on a lot of volunteers. When we go down to Antarctica, it's about 80 to 100 volunteers. We do have the occasional person that is paid, and that's the engineer, for example, because we don't want volunteers coming and sort of fiddling with the engine and leaving 3 months later. So, but most of about 99% of people are volunteers. They come from all different parts of the world. So when I first joined Sea Shepherd, I actually went to their head office and just wanted to help them out in the office because I thought it looks a bit scary on the ships. And I did that for 6 weeks, and then I got invited to go down to Antarctica by Paul Watson. But first of all, he said, you're not going straight to Antarctica, you're actually going to Mauritius, where we've just bought a new vessel, and you're going to do it up, and then you're going to travel down to Antarctica, and you're going to surprise the Japanese whaling fleet. So I told my parents that I was off to Fremantle to jump on the Steve Irwin ship, and they got a bit suspicious when they dropped me off at the international airport. And I said, look, just don't worry, it's fine. My father's here tonight, and he's great with time zones, and he rings me up, and he caught me off guard. He said, what time is it there? And I said, oh, it's 11 in the morning. He goes, that must mean you must be somewhere near Madagascar. So he worked it out. So anyway, so this was a complete sort of rusty ship that actually looks absolutely fabulous now. They've done such an amazing job over the last 2 years. But this is actually the Bob Barker, which Peter and Leslie have been on last year. And so we did that up, and then we actually didn't paint it black until we went out to sea, because we had a lot of suspicious Japanese fishermen come along and sort of ask who we were and what we were doing, and we all unfortunately had made up a different story which really sort of confused everyone. And so we painted her up, and that's us in Mauritius. That's me looking very dirty. It was extremely hard work. And then we painted her, and we went down to Antarctica. Now, Antarctica is not actually owned by anyone. but there is 44 nations that signed the Antarctic Treaty that say that it is just for a place for peace and research, and no economic activity can happen down there. Now that Antarctic Treaty actually expires in 2048, which is a big problem because it's got the biggest supply of fresh water, it's got huge coal fields, and it's got gold, nickel, it's got a huge amount of metals. So, you know, I think one of the things I'm going to devote to my life, in my life, is actually making sure that we keep our grubby fingers off Antarctica and we actually keep it as a beautiful wilderness for the animals and also for us to enjoy as well, to go down there and see it. So anyway, we head down, which takes about 2 weeks. It's some of the most treacherous seas in the ocean, and you get a few people getting a bit seasick. Big swells, and also thick ice when we get down there. This is one of the waves. This is actually the Steve Irwin. Sometimes we get waves up to 7 to 10 metres. So, all right, this is a survival suit. So we have lots of drills down there. So if a fire happens on the ship or an ice cracks the hull, we obviously have to get off the ship at some point, which we really hope never happens. And this is an immersion suit. So you just pop that on with all your clothes on and you jump in the water. It will probably allow you to survive for probably about 6 hours, but no more, especially when the water is minus 1.4 degrees Celsius before it actually freezes. Now, when we go down there, it's a very simple and peaceful strategy. All we need to do is find this one ship, and this is the last whaling factory ship in the world. It literally is a factory that floats. It's got about 150 factory workers in there ready to receive the whale up the slipway there, chop it up, vacuum pack it and box it to be frozen. So when they go to Tsukuji markets in Tokyo, they're offloaded, ready to sell the whale meat. Now, if we find this one ship, it completely shuts down whaling completely, because they don't even bother whaling with the harpoon ships because they know that they would never be able to load a fresh whale onto the slipway. So the thing that gets tricky and the thing that gets very dangerous down there is because it's very hard to find this ship. Because when we actually come down from Mauritius or Tasmania normally, we have harpoon vessels waiting for us, and they find us or we find them, and they follow us around Antarctica, always relaying the coordinates of this to this factory ship and a harpoon ship. So they're always whaling at least with one harpoon ship, and then we've got to actually get rid of these harpoon boats that are relaying the coordinates. So to get rid of those harpoon ships of our tail, that's the dangerous bit, because how do you stop these ships following us by not hurting any of their crew? The last thing we want to do is hurt any of the Japanese whalers, and we don't want to hurt ourselves. So the way we do that is we try and stop their propeller from working with defensive lines, so we're able to escape and then go off and try and find this ship, which is like finding a pin in a haystack. It's extremely hard. If we had some great satellite photos, someone could tell us where they were, that would make it a lot easier, but we don't have that. Right, so that's how big it is. It's about 4 times as big as our biggest ship. It's an absolutely massive, massive ship. So that's one of the harpoon ships harpooning a whale. They go down there and have a quota of over 1,000 whales. 935 of those are the minke whales. Then they get 50 endangered fin whales, which is why they're going against the trade of endangered species. Just like ivory is for elephants, they're not allowed to trade that around the world. Well, they're not allowed to also trade the endangered fin whale. But they go out for 50 of those, and some humpbacks, which last year they didn't take any humpbacks, which is great, although we'd like to go on there and do some DNA sampling, that's for sure. I think they just get whatever they can get when we make it hard for them. So that's a beautiful humpback down there. Now, this is looking for the factory ship and looking to try and find it is very, very tricky. We've got a helicopter. That is really fantastic because that can go for long distances, have a look, and then come back, and then it will probably take us about 2 or 3 days for our ships to get to the factory ship. So the helicopter is normally the one that actually finds the factory ship. I mean, we have 3 ships down there. We have the Steve Irwin, which was obviously named after Steve Irwin because he was a great supporter of us. The Bob Barker, which is the ship that I'm normally on. And there's a guy called Bob Barker, who's the Price is Right guy in America, very famous, and he gave us $5 million and said, if you can stop whaling with this, here's a check. And we really had a really successful year after we got that ship. And then we have the Gojira, which is now renamed the Bridget Bardot. The great thing about this ship is it's very similar to the one that got cracked and sunk, but it's twice as big as her. And she's also made of fiberglass, so she's able to go much faster speeds, and she's also not detected by the Japanese whalers' radars, because she's obviously not made of steel. So she can go quick, although she needs to be refueled quite a bit, so very important. And that's the Steve Irwin with the whales down there last year. So the Japanese whalers go down with research on their ships, but everyone, no, that doesn't really need to be explained. Everyone realises that they're not there to do research, and they hunt whales under the guise of research. There's a lot of statistics saying we actually don't need to kill a whale in order to find out the information. We should just take a biopsy and you can see all the dioxins and you can see the mercury levels. But the only reason they would need to kill it for research is because the only way to determine the age of a whale is actually a small part of the ear. But it's just not, you don't need to do it in this day and age, especially when there's so few whales. So we have our small boats as well, which release the defensive lines, which help get round the props. Doing that's very dangerous for the guys in the small boats, and we had a very bad incident when I was down there last year. There was a combination of the harpoon ships went in a different direction, and it was bad. I mean, they were out for 12 hours and we were 10 hours away to rescuing them. 3 of them had levels of 31 degrees Celsius, which is obviously they're meant to have 37. They came back. It was very, very close to them having big... so that's one of the harpoon ships. That's what we're trying to do here, is put a line in front of them, put a line here that will go into their propeller. Look, it might go in for a couple of hours, but it just gets us the opportunity to escape them without hurting anyone. All right, now you might have seen that we look like we throw things. Well, yes, we do. And we throw something which is a biodegradable rotten butter, and it's actually found in things like Parmesan cheese. It's got that very, very, very smelly. One drop of it smells horrendously like something bad, but a whole bottle of it absolutely smells so bad. And the reason is that because it goes onto their decks, and when the whale is brought up, it makes the meat smell so bad that they can't sell it. Here we are trying to make them lose money. We just want them to eventually go, we cannot afford to go down there anymore, even though all these laws and treaties are there. And we throw it on to the harpoon ships too. That's probably, they're throwing on here probably some red paint. So when they go back to the Tokyo fish markets and they go into the port, it's a pretty ominous looking thing. It looks like it's got blood all over it. So, and if that smelly thing goes on the decks, they don't like it either, obviously. So they've got the Gojira there, small boat, and one of the harpoon ships. And that's a great moment. The Bob Barker has found the factory ship, which is fantastic. Last year was an incredible success. They killed 172 whales, which is obviously a lot because we don't like to see any kill, but it's a lot better than 1,030. And we're able to find them quite early on, and we chased them all the way to South America. And eventually they told the world we have no other option but to go home. And so it was a huge celebration for the world. The papers got hold of it. Everyone thought that's an end to whaling in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary. But unfortunately the bad news is they've just gathered up $27 million spending on security. So not only have they, been wanting tsunami money from anti-whaling countries, they've now got $40 million plus another $27 million in security spending to go down there. So it's very sad. It hasn't ended, unfortunately. Another tactic we can do is actually find the refueling ship, because if we find that, we can stop them refueling, and that also shuts down the whaling down there too. This is one of the tactics we had last year, which was putting a GPS on one of the harpoon ships. So we know if they're coming near us, because obviously we don't want to we don't want to have them on our tail. So it's absolutely beautiful down there. Gary, you've been there a couple of times, or 3 times. It's been more than me. Absolutely amazing. The animals down there, there's not a lot of different types of species, but if they're there, they're very prolific, very healthy. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous sunsets. It's pretty much light the whole time down there in summer. You wouldn't want to go down there in winter. It'd be dark pretty much all the time. It does get pretty violent, and this is one of the harpoon ships. Obviously very annoyed that we found the factory ship. You can see it there, and trying to obviously make the whole breach, and therefore the factory ship can get away. But unfortunately, yeah, that did make a big dent. But it's also pretty scary. The year before, the Arctic got crashed into, and I mean, there's a lot of sort of cat and mouse and sort of a big, sort of threatening each other down there, but we really didn't think that it would do a sharp turn and actually cut this small, it was a fiberglass boat, which we did think those guys were definitely in jeopardy. And actually my role was rescue swimmer, so I didn't actually realise that I'd actually be summoned to get in the water, and they basically said, the bosun, the head of the deck, said, Fiona, put your immersion suit on, the Arctic's in too, and he looked me in the eye and he said, be prepared to drag out dead bodies. And I thought, how did I get myself into this situation? Anyway, they luckily radioed and said, we're okay, one guy's got broken ribs. Not comfortable at all.
You weren't on the boat at the time, then you was on another boat.
Yes, I was on the Bob Barker, and I was down the hull doing something, and about sort of 10 of them could see in the distance, about sort of 750 kilometres away, not too far really, that the harpoon boat had sort of cut into the Arctic. And I mean, luckily that all the guys were awake. Admittedly, the Pete Bethune, the captain, who is no longer a Sea Shepherd, he should have been behind the hull, and he should have turned away. There is 20% his fault too, I'd say. But you don't actually think, they think they're going to go close and scare you a bit and everything, but they didn't actually expect it to actually cut it in half. But normally you've at least got 1 or 2 of the guys sleeping in the hull, because it's a 24-hour ship or 24-hour boat. So you've always got someone driving it, you've always got 1 or 2 guys sleeping, and normally, you would have those guys sleeping down there, but luckily they were all awake, they're all on top of the hull. Something good did come out of that, because it was on the front page of many newspapers around the world, but it was amazing no one was hurt. So that's it there. Crunched. That's one of the camera guys, looking pretty shaken up. They'd also been 21 days at sea and hadn't showered, and it's pretty tough. We actually, not last year but the year before, we actually, our desalinator didn't work. So we actually ran out of fresh water. So every time you'd have a drink of water, you'd need to drink another 2 because there was so much salt in there. Oh gosh, and we couldn't shower for more than 10 days, which is okay if everyone else doesn't shower too, because you sort of get used to it. But I've got to say, it's not luxury living on those ships at all. My room's like 5 girls in a room, and my head's that far away from the toilet, and yes, yeah. But that doesn't bother me at all. You're down there, you got a lot of adrenaline. You're there to save the whales. You're there to protect the whale sanctuary. You're not worried that the last potato and onion has run out and you're on canned food for the next 6 weeks. That doesn't bother you actually. It's pretty fun. But yeah, so we had to actually swim and haul some ice over, which was great. We could all have a shower after that. And these are called growlers. So you've got the bigger iceberg on the left and the smaller little, they're called icy bergs, and the growlers. And some of those are good if you, some of them have a lot of salt penetration around them, and then others have really got that delicious fresh water. But bit hit and miss. So this is the food we eat is vegan. It's not a vegan organisation. It's just the thing is, we're going down there saving animals. Eating them, it just goes against a lot of people's thoughts on there. So I actually didn't even really know what veganism was about 2.5 years ago. It had to be explained. And I was brought up with, fish and meat, and every day of my life pretty much, because I've been very lucky. But I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, we don't even eat honey. It's absolutely nothing to do with animals, and they're all vegan cooks. The food is absolutely amazing. You can get things like bacon, which is fake bacon, and sausages that you are just sure that's a real meat. And they're very creative with their food. Normally we do get some fresh vegetables supplied by the Steve Irwin, because the Steve Irwin goes back to refuel and then supplies us. But I'm on the Bob Barker, and we go down there for 3 months. We don't come back to land. We don't even see land for 3 months. And this year we unfortunately didn't get any fresh supplies because we were near South America. And so when the last potato and onion ran out, we were on beans and rice, beans and rice, and beans and rice for 6 or 7 weeks. So we're just looking forward to a fresh orange when we got back. But we're also excited because we were chasing the whalers out of the whale sanctuary. So, we didn't mind getting the first onset of scurvy. There's that's Laura, one of the cooks. And we still have sushi. It's amazing actually not having the tuna in there. You get the soy sauce and the wasabi, and you don't even realise the tuna's missing. All right, animal people. Do we know which one's that one? Emperor penguin, yes. Yep. That's just some more. I mean, it's incredible down there. It's like you're going through these beautiful sculpture parks all day. You got, they're all next to each other, but some are square and round, and they've just been weathered by, 10, 15 years by the wind. It's just absolutely amazing, these natural sculptures everywhere. Beautiful arches. What about these ones? Anyone know the species of penguin? Adelie, exactly, Adelie. Yep. Yeah, the Adelie penguins are quite sweet. We saw a couple of them have a little bit of fun. They sort of had this ice sculpture, and they sort of climbed up and went down they made a little slide, or just a natural slide, and they came round. Woo, they were having great fun down there. That's a humpback whale. These are some seals. We also have 6 Animal Planet crew with us who come down there, and they document what happens down there. No one on the Sea Shepherd actually wants to be on TV, but they do become like the furniture, and it has done wonders for the cause, because it's Whale Wars, which is actually now on television here in Australia. It's actually the biggest show, most popular show on Animal Planet in America, which has been great. So many people have been aware of what's happening down there, that they're killing whales in the whale sanctuary, so it has been good. That's another Adelie one. Leopard seal, beautiful. The seal that eats other seals. It looks like a painting, doesn't it? But it's actually a photograph. Dolphins, common dolphin. Some orcas down there. Not a lot though. My favourite animal down there, the albatross, absolutely beautiful. There'd always be one albatross or one great southern petrel always at the bow. Just incredible animals, the most energy efficient bird in the world. They rarely flap, they just glide like that. Unfortunately, 100,000 of these die a year from long lines, which is absolutely horrendous. Their numbers are depleting. Of 18 of the 21 species, 18 are endangered. They do have things where, obviously a long line is a long line, and every metre it's got a sardine to mainly catch the tuna. And then the albatross come down, grab a hook thinking, oh, it's a nice piece of fish, and they get taken. Yeah, but what they do is they put little flags on there, and they try and sink the lines a little bit as well, so it's just underneath the water. It has been controlled, but it's still 100,000 are dying every year still. Because yes, there are some ships that do it, very hard to control, very hard to enforce, and you've got so many other more boats coming onto the waters every year that it's a big problem. That's chasing them out of the southern, yeah. So last year, 858 whales saved. I mean, the great thing about that is Sea Shepherd knows exactly how many whales we save when we go down there. So it is very satisfying. It's not some arbitrary, oh, we think we saved this many. It's actually that many because the Japanese fisheries have to release how many whales they've caught. So look, my personal feeling is, why are they going down there for the 6th year in a row losing money? And I really do think that they're really keeping their economic finger in Antarctica. Australia claims about 42% of Antarctica, and we have something called the Australian Antarctic Territory, which is, it sort of starts from Australia and goes down. And if someone's sinking or has problems down there, it's the Australian government that goes down there and rescues the Norwegian boat or the Japanese boat. You know, we do police it, we do enforce our laws there. Japan doesn't like that, of course, and everyone realises that in 2048 that treaty is going to be reviewed. And India, in the last two and a half years, has also come to the party saying, oh, we own some of it too. But what I think as Australians, what we need to do is say to the world, look, we do claim 42% of it, but we will guarantee that we will not go and mine there as long as everyone else also signs on to that. Because look, it's probably not going to happen in 2048, but probably 100 years after that, it's really seen as an absolute mineral haven. And it would just be sad to see that hacked as well, because obviously the Arctic is being absolutely destroyed at the moment and has been for 35 years particularly. But you can see there's silver, gold, copper, iron, lead. It's possibly the second biggest coal field in the world. And the fresh water is actually going to be worth more than anything in 300 to 500 years' time. That's what everyone's going to be going after.
Whether we'll need.
Yeah, oil as well. Yep. I mean, the problem at the moment is it's not feasible because it's so far away, and also these ships taking those resources out have the problems of icebergs and things like that. But you know, when in 30 years' time they think oil's going to run out, the oil reserves, which is not long at all, they will be, you know, looking for other areas. Somewhere like, you know, a country like Japan as well, you know, 160 million people, very small piece of land. They've always lived off the ocean they obviously eat a lot of fish. Those fish stocks have depleted a huge amount. They're not getting enough fish. You know, 80% of tuna goes through Tsukuji markets in Tokyo, including Australian tuna, bluefin tuna. And so they are, you know, they don't have a lot of good agricultural land either. So they are seeing Antarctica. It's really the last unclaimed, unbroken up piece of land in the world. And, you know, we can't see it right now, but I really do think Japan's in there to keep their presence down there. And I read a letter that they actually wrote to the United Nations just today saying that they don't recognise any rights of water, seabed and subsoil. And I put that on my Facebook today, you know, seabed and subsoil. They've put that in the letter because really that is what they're after. So if we can do, it's tricky with Japan because, you know, we say it's a place for peace and research and everyone's signed on to this, and yet they're still going, you know, against the whole world's reasoning of please don't take whales in the whale sanctuary. So it will be quite hard for them to agree to not take any minerals as well. But Sea Shepherd doesn't only just do whales. 70 to 100 million sharks are killed every year. And look, I really wasn't into sharks myself 3 years ago, but I really do understand why they're so important. They're at the top of the food chain. They've got a vital place in the ecosystem. But shark fin soup is a huge seller in Asia. That's fine. We sell it a lot in Australia too. I've just been down to Melbourne and it's amazing how many Chinese restaurants have shark fin soup. Not cheap, $110 a bowl, but as the population is increasing in China and as more people becoming wealthier, they are wanting this for their weddings. Australia is, we think we're this wonderful, clean, wild country. It's amazing how we're not. We still kill sharks in a lot of our waters, even parts of the Great Barrier Reef, the World Heritage Site. And we often eat it in fish and chips. It's called flake. And the fact that we do that is horrendous. It's good that we use the whole animal, but there is shark finning still happening by a lot of those fishing boats. It's couldn't be done very quietly because it takes up that much space in their hulls and they can hide it easily. And, you know, do we have the time to inspect every single fishing boat that comes into a port?
So do they just take the fin?
Just take the fin.
And then leave the shark?
Yes. They just cut off the fins and then they let the animal, it takes quite a while to die as well. Suffocates at the bottom of the Yeah, just take, unbelievable how many sharks they're taking around the world. I mean, it's good that some Asian countries are realising that they also need to create more marine sanctuaries. And I'll talk about that in a minute. I mean, marine sanctuaries are really a way of not just saving a animal, it's a way of saving huge masses of area of beautiful ecosystems and millions of animals. Tuna, the southern bluefin tuna, which is mainly caught in the Great Australian Bight, that's I didn't realise it was so bad, but we've got very low numbers at the moment. There's 3% of the Atlantic bluefin tuna left in the world. And, you know, it's all about demand and supply. Like, the less supply there is, the higher the price, which means people are more incentivised to go out and find the last ones because they're getting up to $100,000 each. The bluefin tuna is gets up to 4 metres long. So here, obviously they've taken the big ones. But actually Mitsubishi, who does the Japanese cars, they control 60 to 70% of all the bluefin tuna. They've got huge warehouses of frozen bluefin tuna stockpiled, and they can't wait till it goes extinct because then the price of those is going to shoot up. And they've got excellent new freezing systems now. The technology can actually snap freeze things, which does keep them fresh, not just for the normal 2 or 3 year period. So, seals. The Canadian government actually, this is a tricky one for Sea Shepherd because we only enforce the law. In this situation, it's the government that actually gives a quota to the Canadian people that this year 380,000 seals can be clubbed. Now they do that because I'm not sure if you heard of what happened in Newfoundland and the cod that was all overfished. In '92 they said no more fishing of cod because the whole industry's kaput. But they said, well, but you know, to give you guys a job, go out and get these seals. 2 years ago, the EU actually banned the importation of seal pelts, which is fantastic. But they've just done a new deal, it's about 3 months ago with China. And as they're getting richer, they're wanting the nice, you know, obviously amazing, for, you know, warm. So that's someone wearing one. But it is, look, I'm trying not to show too many graphic images, although I could have, but yeah, there's some horrific. You can just go on YouTube and have a look what's happening. But so that's tricky. But Paul Watson, that was a couple of his first campaigns. He sort of started his organisation Sea Shepherd by throwing himself in front of a big sealing ship, and he actually stopped the ship with a guy called Robert Hunter. That was their first campaign, and they went back there. But if he goes back there, they've got a warrant for his arrest, like in many countries actually. There's certain soils he goes, I'm not getting onto that land, I'll be. He's wanted by Interpol. That's what the Bob Barker looks now. You might have seen it in Circular Quay. We did paint it because it's just the black's too hot. We go to the Mediterranean and the black is just attracting too much heat, needed a paint job. 2 months ago, I just came back from the Faroe Islands. That is an island, the islands that's owned by Denmark, and they're between Scotland and Iceland. And what they do there is they actually herd in over 1,000 whales every year, and they brutally kill them. They kill the whole pod in one go, which is in some ways better because they're very, very family orientated animals. They live to 60 years, extremely high intelligence. All they need to do is herd in the one female and the rest of the pod all follow. They would never ever leave her. They're obviously mammals, warm-blooded like us. So the great thing about the Faroe Islands is while we were there for 2 months, the Sea Shepherd ships, they did not bother, well, they didn't whale at all. And that's because the camera is now the most powerful weapon in terms of environmental atrocities. You've got social media and Facebook and Twitter. All you need to do is take a picture of some footage, you know, and it's blasted to the world. And the Faroese didn't want that to be shown. We're also doing another show as well. Animal Planet were also on the ships. And they actually herded in 2 pods onto the shores, but they didn't kill them. They actually just tagged them and said, oh, we're doing research as well. Anyway, a week later, they killed over 100. Now, this is a trickier one because it is actually within their exclusive economic zone, different to Antarctica, which is very, very far away from Japan and in a whale sanctuary. But the point is, everyone needs to stop killing whales. If we can't even save the most popular wild animal in the world, the most loved, wild animal, like what hope do we have in saving all of the smaller creatures which are not as pretty, not as beautiful, don't pull the heartstrings? There's just no way we can move forward with the marine environment if we are still killing whales. And in 1986, there was a world moratorium. It was a world agreement that said that everyone's got to stop whaling. And we're just waiting on a few countries, which is obviously Japan, Norway, Iceland, and the Faroese to stop. And so it's really about also teaching the younger generation as well. It's not tradition anymore, because tradition is when they, in order to tell each other about the pod of whales to be herded in, they used to light fires. Well, now they use mobile phones. They used to use much sort of smaller instruments. Now they use very sharp 30-centimetre knives to into their blowholes. It's very, very slow death, very, very slow. I met quite a few whale killers there, and it was horrendous. And they also now have ships supplying them with normal Western food, and they have flights coming in. It's not like they're so isolated, they actually have to rely on this. And they've actually got the highest mercury poisoning of any group of people in the world. So the doctors say do not eat anything more than 200 grams. And there are some wonderful, beautiful people there, but there's also some blood hungry. They can't wait to kill whales. I met 2 whale killers, and one guy boasted that he'd killed 36 whales in one day, and he was the hero of the place. But it was great, really going to speak to the younger generation as well, and we say, do you love whales? And they'd say, yeah, we love whales. We don't want to kill them, because in Newfoundland they also killed the pilot whales, and they're completely gone. So it's very important that we all really, make a concerted effort. And tradition is just not a good enough excuse, not when the planet is in the state that it is in now. And Australia used to whale. We whaled in 1976, but we don't call it tradition. We don't still do it. So this is 241 whales that were killed the year before. One of my Sea Shepherd friends went there as an undercover student, and pictured it. And we've actually dived in a few areas where they're not even eating the whole animal now. They're killing them all and actually throwing them off the cliff. We found whole carcasses in these big graves, we call them. So I've just got a picture of Australia, because I think we are just in the most critical point in history now in order to keep the wild. Like, we just don't need to follow what the rest of the world has done, and that is decimate their forests, decimate their marine environments. This is how Australia will be rich in 300 years' time. I know we won't be around then, but the economic value of the wild is going to be a lot more than the short-term gains of mineral extraction. And at the moment, Tony Burke is looking at what network of marine sanctuaries he's going to put around Australia. And that's because he's got an international commitment that says at least 20 to 30% of all countries should have marine protected environments. Number one, he's come up with these plans which are not very coastal. They're sort of, he's looking at the southwest. There's sort of Diamantina, which is not even threatened by fishing. And they're not areas which are really, really important for the breeding of fish, which is great for fisheries as well. I mean, a lot of fishermen are for marine sanctuaries because they're seeing that all the fish are depleting, and they want areas where the fish can breed, and then they can go on their migratory paths outside of the marine sanctuaries and can be fished. So it's good for everyone. And the plans he's actually released are actually, I mean, the word is actually pathetic. And he's in such an amazing position to actually do something where he will be known as a remarkable man, and we really have to let him know that. So I was just in Perth last week with Save Our Marine Life, which is campaigning Tony Burke, and what is happening at the moment, he's hearing from all the fisheries saying, don't you dare ruin my livelihood, and they can get quite angry, these guys. But what he's not hearing from is people who want marine sanctuaries. And what I'd like to ask you guys, if possible, if tomorrow morning you can just call your local MP and just leave a quick little message like this, say, well, mine's Malcolm Turnbull, just ring up, it's a message from Malcolm Turnbull, please, let's have a meeting, I want to talk about marine sanctuaries, which you'll probably say no, or leave a message, and please tell Tony Burke that the draft plans aren't good enough, we want much bigger network of marine sanctuaries. That's all you need to say, put the phone down. because we've found that there's amazing research that these MPs are so worried about losing their seat because they realise, oh my gosh, you know what, not representing the interests of the people, that they ring up Tony Burke, we've got to talk about this marine sanctuary thing. You know, I'm getting pressure from the people. So that would just be amazing if you all just make that quick phone call tomorrow morning. He's most likely going to get a voice message and just sort of say, we want marine sanctuaries. That would be amazing. Thank you. So that's just please call your minister. And here we go. You can look at us on Facebook. Are you guys all on Facebook? Yeah? Okay. It's quite fun, Facebook. We call it stalk book in our generation because, not that I do that, but, you know, you can look into what they're up to on the weekend and who's friends with who. You know, it's quite fun, but it... I know, exactly. It is a bit... Yes, no, it is a bit like that. But actually, they've done a lot of research and they're saying a lot of people now read all articles online, like newspaper articles from links on the Facebook. So if I need to know about the marine world or something, I just go into my Facebook and people have posted Sydney Morning Herald articles. But it's a great way to see, you know, what's happening. And the Sea Shepherd, you know, you can just log on, you can see what's happening to the ships. I'm not going down this year, number one, because I've just recently got off the ship. And after 2.5 years, reality hits. I've got to actually get a job again. So, but I'll be on shore talking to people. So, all right. Now, I hope you've got lots of questions for me because I'm meant to be talking for an hour.